If Niccolo Machiavelli were alive today, he wouldn't be writing books. He'd be building silent empires from the shadows. Wouldn't tweet, he wouldn't post. He'd remain invisible, the hand behind the curtain, pulling strings. So, precisely that it would feel like fate, because in this modern world obsessed with visibility, Machiavelli would dominate through invisibility. And today, I'm going to reveal exactly how. Not through quotes, but doctrine. Real strategy. 21 psychological rules for absolute control. Shaped by what Machiavelli would do if he were living among us now. Rule 1. Always let them underestimate you, Machiavelli. Understood something that the modern ego refuses to accept true power is safest when it's hidden. In today's society where everyone is in a rush to validate themselves, to flaunt credentials, to dominate conversations, he would do the opposite. He wouldn't storm into a room. He'd arrive late, observe in silence, and speak only when the room had exhausted its noise. And when he finally spoke, he'd say what no one else dared to say. That's how you control attention without demanding it. That's how you influence a room before they even realize who you are. Let them assume you're mild, quiet, even insignificant. Why? Because when they perceive no threat, they become careless. They talk too much. They reveal too much. They stop defending themselves. That's when you strike, not with force, but with precision. From a position they never expected. Rule 2. Charm is more dangerous than truth. We live in an age that worships image and rejects depth. Truth doesn't trend, perception does. And Machiavelli, had he lived in our era, would have mastered perception like a weapon. He wouldn't waste time defending his character. He'd invest in illusion. You'd see him smiling in meetings, gracious in conversation, while beneath the surface, he'd be planting seeds of confusion and control. He would charm rivals, inflate their pride, and weaponize their confidence against them. And when the moment was right, he'd cut through their defenses not with a sword, but with their own misjudgment. He wouldn't care to be good. He'd care to seem good. That's the difference between control and vulnerability. The truth can be questioned, but belief is a fortress. Don't correct the way people see you. Exploit it. Let them crown you the hero while behind the curtain. You rewrite the ending to suit your own design. Rule 3. Create ambiguity on purpose. In a world where everyone is trying so hard to be understood, Machiavelli would master the opposite. He'd be unpredictable by design. One day cold, the next day generous. Sometimes silent, other times electric with intensity. Why? Because when people don't understand you, they can't control you. Confusion leads to curiosity. Curiosity breeds obsession. Obsession sharpens attention. And once you have someone's focused attention, you own their mind. When people can't define you, they begin to orbit you. They analyze your words. They dissect your silences. They try to solve you like a puzzle they never asked to receive. But now, can't stop playing with. That's the art. You're not a person anymore. You're a riddle with no answer. A question that keeps them awake. What do people fear more than the unknown? Machiavelli would tell you this. The ones you control most are the ones who think about you most. So stop explaining yourself. Stop filling every gap. Stop needing to be understood. Speak in riddles. Let mystery be your shield. Smile gently when they ask questions you never intend to answer. And in that silence, that calculated uncertainty, let them lose themselves in your shadow. Because now men judge more by the eye than the ... Because confusion breeds curiosity. And curiosity becomes gravitational, pulling attention. Fixation, even admiration toward what cannot be clearly defined. Rule 4. Control what they see, hide what you do. In today's world where every action is documented, shared, and judged, in real time, Machiavelli would never expose the machinery behind his movements. While others are busy updating followers, posting milestones, showcasing every step of their grind, he would move in calculated silence. Because the moment people see how you move, they begin plotting how to stop you. They form alliances, they draft counter-moves. They plant narratives like seeds, and you don't even notice they've built a trap until it's already under your feet. So what would Machiavelli do? He'd play the game differently. His results would be visible, but his process invisible. Reserved. God, I'm so wide to revow. Gotta just say, I'm going out to guy. I'm gonna get, I'm some guy. I'm angry. I'm would appear open while every real mechanism stays sealed behind layers of discretion. A master illusionist in the digital age, a prince must always be prepared to act against loyalty, against charity, against humanity, and even against religion if the survival of the state demands it. What does that mean in our world? Pure? Noble, move ruthlessly. Don't announce your strategy. Don't explain your systems. Don't tell anyone what you're building, not until it's finished. Let them believe you're distracted. Let them think you're falling behind. And then, pass them without a sound. Like a ghost in daylight, control what the world sees. Guard the engine that drives it. Rule 5. Build a mask. Then let it fracture. Machiavelli grasped something that modern manipulators now exploit masterfully. Perfection is forgettable, but flaws. Flaws are magnetic. You craft your mask, confident, articulate, composed. You become the version of yourself that people admire, trust, or even envy. But once, just once, you let it crack. Intentionally, you reveal a controlled imperfection, a sudden burst of emotion, a raw insight, a mistake that feels too real to be manufactured. Why? Because obsession doesn't come from what people understand, it comes from what they almost understand. When you give them 90% of the story and then vanish into silence, they chase the missing 10% like it holds the answer to their own confusion. A wise ruler should cultivate an appearance of virtue, but be ready to act against it when power demands. So show them light, then flash the shadow. Let them see the abyss behind your smile, then shut the door. That glimpse alone will burn itself into memory. You won't be unforgettable because they loved the mask. You'll be unforgettable because they saw it slip, and now they're haunted by what might lie behind it. Rule 6. Say less than necessary always. The more people talk, the more they reveal. Not just facts, but fears. Their hunger for approval. Their discomfort with silence. Their weakness for validation. But the one who speaks with intention, then stops, gains control. Because silence is rarely empty. It's loaded with power. Machiavelli didn't speak to be understood. He spoke to create distance. His words were never pillows. They were blades, sharp, precise, and few. In negotiations, in conflict, even in casual debate, he would speak just enough to shift the dynamic. Then, he'd stop. And in that pause, he let the silence expand like a shadow over the room. That silence, that's when the fear begins, because now they start filling in the blanks. What is he thinking? Why is he so calm? What does he know that I don't? You've said nothing, and yet in their minds you've become a threat too complex to predict. You've become the villain in the story they're writing. And they can't figure out how it ends, because now they project. They start thinking. What does he know? Why isn't he reacting? What's he planning next? You've said nothing. But they've written a novel in their heads, and you're the villain. They can't outmaneuver. So what do you say in power? Exactly enough, not to please, not to impress. Just enough to guide the flow of thought in your favor. Then you stop. Let the silence carry weight. Let them lean forward. Let them overthink. Because real mystery, the kind that grips people, that keeps them returning, analyzing, Second guessing is born not in what's said, but in the space between words. It's the pauses, the unfinished thoughts, the lack of certainty that create the most lasting influence. Rule 7. Blur the line between threat and ally. In today's hyper-anxious world, people cling to definitions. They want to label everyone. Friend or foe, safe or dangerous, loyal or deceptive. But Machiavelli, he would never give them that comfort. He'd sit with enemies and toast their victories. Compliment rivals in public forums. Defend those he had no intention of keeping. Why? Because when people believe you're dangerous, they stay guarded. But when they believe you're neutral, even friendly, they lower their defenses. And the best time to act is when your target isn't looking. The lion cannot protect himself from traps. The fox cannot defend himself from wolves. To survive and to conquer, you must be both. A fox to detect danger, a lion to command fear. So you complement your enemy's strategy just before dismantling it. You echo a critic's opinion just before quietly replacing them. You appear harmless, even helpful, until your absence becomes their biggest threat. Be warm. Be encouraging. Be present until the moment you disappear, and by the time they realize your move, the board has already changed. Modern translation: say less. Smile more. Blend in. Play neutral. And when they're still unsure whether you're a threat or a friend, that's when you strike. By then, it's far too late. Rule 8. Make them feel safe. Right before you take power, the easiest way to remove someone isn't by confrontation. It's by comfort. Make them feel secure. Like you're an ally. Like you're invested in their success. Like your future depends on their vision. And when they let you in, when they begin to trust you, you act. Machiavelli would mirror your behavior, speak your language, complement your ideas with subtle enthusiasm. He wouldn't challenge you directly. He'd align with you gently. Wouldn't make you feel like you were losing. He'd make you believe you were winning with him at your side. Until, without warning, he's no longer beside you. He's in your place. Men are so simple, so driven by present needs, that a deceiver will never lack victims. So give them what they crave. Say what they long to hear. Show them what they want to see. And then take what they never imagined could be taken. All while wearing a smile that says you mean no harm. Rule 9. Make people dependent. Then remove yourself. If Machiavelli wanted to rule someone, he wouldn't start with force. He'd begin with help. Quiet, targeted, irreplaceable help. He'd offer value others couldn't. Solve problems no one else dared. Provide emotional, strategic, or even financial stability, not as a favor, but as a strategy. He'd become essential, the unseen pillar holding their structure upright, not through praise, not through titles, but through impact. And just when they needed him most, when their system quietly relied on his presence, he'd step away, not in anger, not as punishment, but with subtle finality. No revenge, no announcement, just absence. Why? Because nothing disorients or devastates people faster than the sudden disappearance of what they've become quietly dependent on, the absence of comfort. The removal of certainty. These leave deeper scars than confrontation ever could. Men are kept honest only by necessity. When that necessity fades, so does integrity. When left unchecked, free to act without fear or consequence, most will default to selfishness and secrecy. So, Machiavelli would not just be a person, he would be your necessary illusion. The presence you took for granted, it's the anchor you didn't know you leaned on until it was gone, and that's the trick. That's how you become unforgettable. You don't demand attention. You don't beg to be valued. Create a void. You allow others to rest in your support. Then right in the middle of their stride, you take your hand away. They won't resent you. They'll resent themselves. Resent the fact that they need you. And for years they'll try and fail. To fill that exact space, Rule 10. Weaponize the favor. Most people offer help because they want approval. They seek affection, appreciation, applause. But Machiavelli, he offered help for a different reason entirely. Leverage. When he gave, it wasn't charity, it was chess. And every favor was a future move already planned. He wouldn't beg for repayment. He wouldn't demand gratitude. He'd simply exist in your mind as a lingering imbalance. You'd feel it. That psychological debt. That invisible weight. He wouldn't confront you with it. He wouldn't even mention it. Just a subtle presence. It's just enough to keep you aware. That he owns a piece of your pride, he might say. Remember that time? I once. That's all. Enough to remind you of your dependence. Of the shortcut you took. Of the edge he gave you. And the more time passed without repayment, the heavier that imbalance would become. Because favors, when timed and used with patience, become psychological chains. And the longer they're ignored, the tighter they grip. Rule 11. Manufacture loyalty by letting them betray others for you. People assume loyalty is earned through kindness, through support, through shared experiences. But Machiavelli knew otherwise. The most powerful loyalty doesn't come from admiration, it comes from complicity. You don't command it, you don't beg for it. You create the environment where betrayal feels voluntary. You let them leak something they shouldn't have said. You let them speak against a friend just to win your favor. You never ask. You never push. You simply leave the door open, and they step through on their own. And when they do, they're no longer just an ally. They're entangled. Because people fiercely protect the things they've compromised for. Their secrets, their sins, their slip-ups, they become the glue that binds them to you. So when they betray others for your benefit, they're no longer observers. They're invested. The deeper their betrayal, the harder it is for them to leave you, because walking away means exposing their own cracks. Machiavelli wouldn't build alliances with charm. He'd build them with entanglement. Rule 12. Break alliances from the inside. Machiavelli's genius wasn't just in defeating individuals, it was in dismantling entire groups, entire networks, without ever drawing his sword. He didn't challenge alliances. He corroded them. It's not with force, but with quiet. Erosion. He'd infiltrate, not as an enemy, but as a whisper. He wouldn't attack the bond. He'd plant seeds in the soil of loyalty. A comment here. A raised eyebrow there. I heard he said something about you. She never defends you when you're not around, have you noticed? I'm not suggesting anything. Just watch. That's all it takes. No slander, no accusations, just doubt. And doubt, once seated, rarely dies. He who causes another to become powerful ruins himself. So Machiavelli would never let groups grow stronger together. He would fracture them quietly. You don't need to destroy the alliance. You just make them destroy it themselves. Let suspicion rot the foundation. Let fear do the work. All you need is time. Because once trust breaks inside a group, the whole structure collapses. And it doesn't require a single direct blow. No explosion, no betrayal, caught in the act. It's just a slow crumble like rot under polished wood. That's the elegance of quiet destruction. Rule 13. Reflect. Their insecurities back at them. Want someone to follow you, not through force, not through orders, but willingly, almost unknowingly, then speak to their fears, not loudly, not cruelly. Speak with softness, with the calculated compassion of someone who's studied their shadow. You don't insult them. You don't attack. Instead, you validate their deepest doubts with gentle, strategically timed affirmations. You're really brave, especially for someone who's not used to attention. You always pull through, even when people don't take you seriously. You're doing great, even if your confidence doesn't always show it. What happens next? These statements don't provoke. They disarm. They don't challenge. They align. They trigger a subconscious agreement drawn straight from their internal ache. And once you've positioned yourself as the one who truly sees them, not just their strengths, but their flaws, they anchor themselves to you. They trust. They defer. They begin to orbit your words, your approval, your emotional gravity. Machiavelli understood. Fear and insecurity are more powerful than threats. Because while threats provoke resistance, insecurity leaves the door wide open. Once you're inside, your voice becomes the only one they trust. Rule 14. Never be the one holding the knife behind every betrayal. Behind every political shift, Behind every cold decision, Machiavelli followed one golden principle: let someone else do the dirty work. He never stood in the spotlight holding the blade. Instead, he moved in the margins, whispering ideas, feeding intentions, guiding outcomes. If someone needed to be removed, he'd create the impression they were never trustworthy. If a rival posed a threat, he'd nudge them just enough to self-destruct. If chaos was necessary, he'd seed both sides with just the right information, then step away before the spark caught fire. Why? Because executioners gain enemies, but inevitable alternatives gain support. When someone falls, people look for a replacement. If you're already positioned as the calm, stable, silent alternative, you rise, not as a usurper, but as a solution. And that is the masterpiece. That is the Machiavellian art, the illusion of clean hands. You pulled the strings. You shifted the board, but no one can ever prove it. Even if they suspect, it no longer matters, because you're already seated. Where the last one stood? Rule 15. Say nothing, and let them reveal everything in any room. The most dominant presence isn't always the one who speaks. Often, it's the one who doesn't, the one whose silence swallows attention like gravity. Why? Because silence is not an action. It's not weakness. It's a weapon, one wrapped in the illusion of passivity. In a world addicted to noise, podcasts, live streams, monologues, Machiavelli would win by becoming the one who never needs to speak to be heard. Someone insults you, you stay silent. Someone probes for your opinion, you smile and let them talk. Someone tries to provoke you, you blink unbothered and offer nothing. That silence becomes unbearable for them. They begin to over-explain, over-defend, overshare. And in doing so, they expose themselves, their insecurities, their motives, their hidden weaknesses. Because the more they talk, the more they reveal. You don't have to interrogate them. They'll tell you everything just to fill the space you've weaponized. That silent, sharp, deliberate, loaded with weight becomes unbearable. And in their rush to escape it, they give away their secrets, their strategies, even their fears. Never attempt to win by force what can be won by deception. The wise never shout when a whisper will do. Silence, after all, is deception's most elegant form, clean, silent, and far more efficient than threats or brute power. Rule 16. Be unpredictable. But only when it matters. Machiavelli never acted. At random, he wasn't reckless. But when the stakes were high, when it mattered most, he refused to follow a script. Predictability is a leash. If they always know how you respond, they'll tug you into place like a trained dog. If they know when you'll speak, they'll time their lies around it. If they know you'll always choose peace, they'll escalate with confidence. If they know you'll stay calm under pressure, they'll plan the pressure. But imagine instead, one day you reply warmly, the next you vanish. One day you tolerate the insult, the next you walk away mid-sentence. Sometimes you show compassion, other times, silence. One moment you engage, the next, you let the chaos unfold without lifting a finger. This isn't madness, it's unreadability, the weapon of those who refuse to be studied. Machiavelli understood the deep truth. Men are driven by love or fear. Fear does not come from cruelty, it comes from uncertainty. The one they can't predict, it's the one they can't prepare for. Rule 17. Make your presence felt even in absence. To dominate someone's thoughts, you don't need to be near them. You only need to echo. You only need to leave behind a presence so precise, so composed, so sharply felt that even your absence becomes a presence. How? You become the standard. It's the measuring stick, the phantom in every conversation. They pause. Before speaking, wondering how you would have phrased it, they second-guess a decision, recalling how you would have corrected them. They win and still feel uneasy because your voice used to question their celebrations. This is psychological branding, but not through words, through energy. Through how you act when you're in the room, measured, exact, razor-focused. Way you observe, the way you hold silence, the way you move with purpose. And when you're gone, they don't just notice, they compare everyone else to you. Machiavelli wouldn't fire someone. He'd leave such a mark on the environment that even in his absence, people would still behave as if he were watching. Rule 18. Never threaten. Thing, let fear do the work. Threats trigger resistance. They build walls. Machiavelli didn't need to say, "I'll destroy you." He let others wonder if he might. That wondering, that quiet pressure is far more destructive than any direct warning. In today's world, the game is no different. You don't say, "I could expose you." You pause when they lie. Hold eye contact. Let the silence tighten. You don't say, "You're done." You make one strategic move, one phone call, one subtle shift, then say nothing more. You don't scream. You simply disappear and let them spiral, consumed with questions. What's he planning? What's coming next? Who is he talking to? Because fear born of imagination is more powerful than fear born of information. It multiplies. It grows in the dark, and it forces them to act to chase your approval. To fix what hasn't been broken yet, just to avoid the answer they're too afraid to find out. Once they fear what you might do, they start working for your approval just to avoid finding out. Rule 19. Delay your revenge until it becomes devastating. Machiavelli never believed in the impulse to strike quickly. He saw immediate retaliation as weakness in disguise, a surrender to emotion rather than a display of power. Instead, he chose patience, the most precise weapon of all. He would watch, wait, and observe from the shadows, letting the initial insult ripen into something more meaningful. He knew that time amplifies pain, so he let the offense ferment, rot, and become brittle. Why? Because the true art of vengeance is not in the reaction, but in the timing. Injuries should be inflicted all at once, so that their ill's savor may be less. Benefits should be granted little by little. This wasn't just strategy, it was psychological warfare. When someone crossed him, he didn't confront them, didn't flinch. He studied them instead. He let them relax, let them celebrate, let them believe they had won. And then when their guard was down, when their world seemed most stable, moved, clean, precise, absolute, because revenge isn't simply about punishment. It's about control. React too quickly, and you allow your enemy to dictate the pace of the game. But when you wait, when you delay, they begin to suffer long. Before you act, every silence becomes suspicious. Every victory tastes hollow. Every night becomes haunted with the thought, is today the day it comes back to me? That kind of fear corrodes the soul. It chips away at confidence. It does more than hurt. It dismantles. Rule 20. Become a system, not a man. Machiavelli didn't strive to be liked. He didn't care for applause, craved something deeper. Respect, the kind rooted not in charm, but in permanence. His goal was simple, to become irreplaceable. Not because he was unique, but because he became the structure itself. He understood that true power doesn't lie in visibility. It lies in embedded influence. He didn't want to be remembered. As a person, he wanted to become a process, a pattern, a voice that lingered in people's choices long after he was gone. That's the modern strategy. Stop being a name. Start becoming a network. Train others to mimic your thinking. Insights, part of the protocol. Design systems that only you can run, and then step back, knowing they can't operate without you. Even if they want to erase you, they'll find they can't. You're etched into the machine. This is how legacies are made, not through fame, but through integration. When your absence breaks the system more than your presence ever did, you've won. That's not just influence. It's permanent psychological control. Rule 21. Make them afraid to speak your name. Recognition isn't the final stage of power. Fear is not fear of what you might do, but fear of what your name invokes. Machiavelli would become the figure spoken of in shadows. People wouldn't reference him directly. They'd whisper, "You know who I mean," or "Don't end up like him." His name wouldn't trend. It would haunt. It wouldn't be in headlines. It would be in warnings. When you truly master presence, you no longer need to speak. You become the quiet shift in energy when your name is even implied. You don't argue. You don't threaten. You simply exist as a force people calibrate themselves around. Because when people fear even mentioning you, you've entered a realm beyond power. You've become myth. If Machiavelli were alive today, he wouldn't be shouting into the void of social media. He wouldn't be chasing likes or building followings. He would be silent, hidden, weaving himself into the fabric of decisions, shaping entire narratives behind closed doors, behind smiles and silence. He'd be that still, knowing voice in your mind whispering, don't react, don't explain. Let them speak first. Above all, don't chase respect. Becomes so essential that they can't breathe without giving it to you. That's how you win. Not with fame, not with noise. The legacy they can't stop.